Hope some devotees will join later.
Okay, I think
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept our humble obeisances. Our glories to Jagat Guru Shri Prabhupada, glories to Gurudev. Today we have His Grace Salika Prabhu, who will be taking us into the sweet nectarian waters of life, which is the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. It is the very conquest of material existence. So, Salika Prabhu, thank you for being here. And if you are ready, we will put the vessel on the screen and you take it over from here.
Yes, Prabhuji, we can go ahead.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritam Naraichavam Naruttamam. Devi Sarasvati Vyasam Tato Jayam Virayet. Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavatam Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttaman Sloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. Reading from SRIMAD Bhagavatam, second canto, chapter 1. Today's text is, we're reading from text number 22. Which read thus. Rajahuvacha Yata Sundaryate Brahma Datra Mayatra Sarmata Yadrishiva Ared Asha Purushasva Manomalam Rajahuvacha Yata Sandaryate Brahman Dharan Nayatra Samvatmata Yadrishiva Ared Asha Purushasya Manomalam Rajohuvacha Yata Sandaryate Brahman Dharana Yatra Samata Yadrishiva Araid Ashu Purushasya Manomalam. Synonyms. Raja Uvacha, the fortunate king said, Yataha, as it is. Sandaryate, the conception is made. Brahman, O Brahmana. Dharana, conception. Yatra, where and how. Samataha, and a summary. Yadrishi, the way by which. Va, or. Harahet, extricated, also, without delay. Purushasya, of a person. Manaha, of the mind. Malaham, dirty things. Translation purpose by His Divine Grace Labai Charanaravinda Sibhakti Vedanta Swami Patita Parvandega Guru Sudha. The fortunate King Parikshit, inquiring further, said, O Brahmana, please describe in full. Describe in full detail how and where the mind has to be applied and how the conception can be fit so that the dirty things a person's mind can be removed. I'll take the translation once again. The fortunate King Parikshit, inquiring further, said, "O Brahmana, please describe in full detail how and where the mind has to be applied and how the conception can be fixed so that the dirty things in the person's mind can be removed." Purport by Srila Krishna Prabhupada. The dirty things in the heart of a conditioned soul are the root cause of all troubles for him. A conditioned soul is surrounded by the manifold miseries of material existence. But on account of his gross ignorance, he is unable to remove the troubles due to dirty things in the heart, accumulated during the long prison life in the material world. It's actually meant to serve the will of the Supreme Lord. But on account of the dirty things in the heart, he likes to serve his concocted desires. These desires, instead of giving him any peace of mind, create new problems and thus bind him to the cycle of repeated birth and death. These dirty things of fruitive work and emphatic philosophy can be removed only by association with the Supreme Lord. The Lord, being omnipotent, can offer his association by his inconceivable potencies. Thus, persons who are unable to pin their faith on the personal feature of the absolute truth are given a chance to associate with his Virat Rupa, or the cosmic impersonal feature of the Lord. The cosmic impersonal feature of the Lord is a feature of his unlimited potencies. Since the potent and potencies are identical, even the conception of his impersonal cosmic features urges the conditioned soul to associate with the Lord indirectly, and thus gradually rise to the stage of personal contact. Maharaj Parikshit was already directly connected with the personal feature of the Lord, Sri Krishna. And as such, he had no need to inquire from Sukadev Goswami about where and how to apply the mind in the impersonal Virat Rupa of the Lord. But he inquired after a detailed description of the matter for the benefit of others. Who are unable to conceive of the transcendental personal feature of the Lord as the form of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. The non-devotee class of men cannot think of the personal feature of the Lord because of their poor fund of knowledge. The personal form of the Lord, like Rama or Krishna, is completely revolting to them. They have a poor estimation of the potency of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text number 11, it is explained by the Lord that himself that people with a poor fund of knowledge describe the Supreme Personality of the Lord, taking him to be a common man. Such men are ignorant of the inconceivable potency of the Lord. By the inconceivable potency of the Lord, he can move in human society or any other society of living beings and yet remain the same omnipotent Lord, without deviating in the slightest from his transcendental position. So for the benefit of men who are unable to accept the Lord in his personal external form, Maharaj Parikshit inquired from Sukadev Goswami how to fix the mind on him in the beginning, and the Goswami replied in details as follows. Kamagyanam timirandasya gyanam gyanam shalakaya Chakshu militam jena tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupam Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Pada Kamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavamsa Shri Rupa Sagrajatam Sahaganam Raghunatam Tam Sa Ajivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijanam Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Adivam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahaganam Lalita Sri Vishaka Vitamsha He Krishna Karuna Shindu Dinabandhu Gagapati Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Davaneshwari Rishabhanu Shute Devi Pranamani Hari Priye Mokankaro Tivachalam Pangam Lagayate Girim Yakripata Bande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Vancha Karpataru Vyascha Kripa Sundubhyas Evaschaha Patitanam Pavashnavebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srinivasadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Rajo Uvacha Yata Sandaryate Brahman Dharana Yatra Samat Yadrishiva Arvedasya Guru Sasya Mano Malam. The fortunate king Parikshit, inquiring further, said, O Brahmana, please describe in full detail how and where the mind has to be applied and how the conception can be fixed so that the dirty things in a person's mind can be removed. Hare Krishna. So, thank you all for being here today to our regular SRIMAD Bhagavatam class. We are continuing our reading from second canto of the SRIMAD Bhagavatam, the first chapter. We are reading today text number 22 in the subject matter of the first steps in God realization. And in this particular text, Maharaj Parikshit is responding after Sukadev Goswami has been speaking in the last couple of verses about the process of impersonal realization, or how one can meditate, how the process of dharana or dhyana yoga, or the process of meditation, which focuses on what we call Ashtanga yoga. So after hearing all of that, after explaining all the intricacies and the delicate nature of such meditation, because Maharaj Parikshit, although acting in the position of one who is a victim, or someone who is in an unfortunate situation according to material calculation, who is about to die. Because materialists consider the time of death to be an unfortunate time. But for the pure devotees of the Lord, it is considered the most auspicious moment, because one is about to meet you after a long time of separation from the Lord. So the pure devotee does not consider the time of death to be an unfortunate moment. So therefore, they celebrate that moment. And that is why you see that devotees, when someone is about to die, in a normal material conception, people will start crying, lamenting, and rolling on the ground. But devotees will start dancing. They'll be chanting kirtan blissfully. And when the person eventually actually even leaves, they open the kitchen and then cook sweet rice and enjoy, because it's celebration. So for the benefit of those who are not on that platform of bhakta, who are struggling with the conception of God at different levels, other than that of the personal feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Maharaj Parikshit here, who is a pure devotee of the Lord, who is acting in the capacity of someone who is about to die, like ordinary person, is asking a question. Sukadev Goswami has explained how a yogi should meditate, how he should sit down, how he should where he should face, how he should compose himself. But just like Arjuna, who is another actor, devotee, who is the well-wisher of the living entity in the material world, when he was told by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita chapter 6, the process of meditation by the process of Dhyan Yoga, he exclaimed that this process you have explained is very difficult, my dear Lord. How can somebody control the mind? How can somebody capture and keep the mind focused, as you have explained? This is not possible. And Lord Krishna didn't miss word by telling him, yes, you are right. And in the chapter that described the position of the Bhaktas in the chapter 12 of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna himself, he confirms this, he mentioned that for those who are trying to meditate on the impersonal Brahma, for one who is embodied, this is not the process. In other words, the process is so almost impossible for one who is embodied. So Maharaj Parikshit, knowing this very well, so he asked Sukadev Goswami, you have narrated all of this process of meditation, sitting down in a nice posture, this, that, and that. But for the emphasis, because he is thinking of those who are devotees, so he has a question. So please, I want to know. He has already described the process of yogi, process of focusing the mind, because ultimately, the goal of all spiritual life is to control the mind. Just like in the process of driving a car, or driving any machine, the control is what really matters. A 6-year-old can sit on a pilot, in the seat of a pilot, and press button. But the expertise of the pilot is shown only when there is a need to control or to direct the plane. The same thing with the driver. No matter how smooth a car is, no matter how new a car is, no matter how wonderful the vehicle is, when the most important thing for the driver is the brake and the steering. which controls the vehicle. Even sometimes when the brake is lost, an expert driver relies on the steering to manipulate to be able to save himself and his passengers. So in the same way, the mind, which is the driver of all of the being of the living entity in the material body, Lord Krishna, he nicely described in the Bhagavad Gita this body, this material human form of life, human body, sorry, to be like a machine. So the living entity is seated on this form called body as on a machine. So the material body is just like a machine or a motor car that we drive to take us to its destination. And the soul is sitting inside. And the driver of this body is the mind. So it is key, it is important. So the whole process of spiritual life is focused on the driver. Whatever part, whatever form of spirituality, whatever form of business, even in material life that one pursues, the control has a whole lot. It is said that one's driving force in life, one's experience in life is determined by its driving force. So the mind is people, it is central, it's key. So all processes of success in life depends on the state of the mind. So Maharaj Parikshit here is asking that you have explained so many nice messages here, but please kindly tell me in detail this mind. Where the mind has to be applied and how it can be fixed so that the 30 things in the place of mind can be removed. And Prabhupada explained in the purport that the dirty things in the heart of the conditioned soul are the root cause of all troubles for him. How is that? How do we understand these dirty things in the heart of the living entities? Just like a mirror in the house that is unkept or left aside for several days or months, becomes cloudy by accumulation of dirt. So in the same way, the living entity passing through different bodies from boy to youth to old age, even in this one present life, accumulates so many dirty things because the material world is dirty place. It is not pure. And what are those dirty things? The impressions that we carry when the living entity is born, depending on the environment where he is born. He is called Paul or Musbau or Balaram, depending on where he is born. And the living entity occupying that material body, as it grows, he identifies himself as Musbau or Paul or carpenter. And you know, the first time I heard somebody's name as carpenter, I could not afford not to laugh. And that person was very happy to bear that name. But according to English language, carpenter means the name of a profession. So that is the first impression. as the child is growing up, he is being called a particular name that has nothing to do with it. Then he is made to wear a particular kind of clothing. Then he's called a particular tribe. The soul is pure. It has nothing to do with all of this. It's completely pure. The soul is completely pure because why? It's part and parcel of the Supreme. But that, as it grows up, he is called an American. He's called a European. He's called an Indian man. And himself accept that. These are the dirty things because they have nothing to do with the self. And as one grows, then he's very proud. He said, I'm an alumni of Harvard University. I'm an alumni of King's College. All that has nothing to do with the self. And the more and more the living entity accumulates and carries all of these misidentifications along himself, it goes further and further and further away from his reality of who he is. So that is what Prabhupada is explaining here in the first sentence of the Bible. The dirty things in the heart of the conditioned soul are the root cause of his trouble, because as the living entity is growing, is accumulating all kinds of these debts. He's a poor man, he's a long man, he's a short man, he's a tall man. All of this accumulation is gathering. And that is what happened to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna, although he was such a great personality, but due to the coverings, although Arjuna it's not a conditioned soul, but for the sake of the living entity, Arjuna puts himself, just like we mentioned earlier, he puts himself in the position of a conditioned soul, just like Maharaj Parikshit here. Maharaj Parikshit is putting himself in the position of an ordinary person who is about to die, and is asking a salient question. Sir, my dear Brahmana, please tell me, where should one fix the mind? For one to be able to fix the mind, the first thing, the first process is to do what? To disassociate with all of this gross misconception. So Prabhupada said further in the purport, he said, a conditioned soul is surrounded by the manifold miseries of material existence, but on account of his gross ignorance, is unable to remove the troubles due to dirty things in the heart, accumulated during the long prison life in the material world. For those who have experienced malaria before, when somebody is being affected by the disease called malaria, he lost his appetite. He cannot eat as any other person eats. And if he stays too long in that situation, when he gets well again, he has to start learning how to adjust how to eat. In the same way, the living entity in the material world, although, like Krishna says to Arjuna, is completely pure. Due to all of this manifold of, like Prabhupada used the word manifold, accumulation of debts associated with existence in the material world, he's confused. The primary duty of the mind is described in the Bhagavad Gita by Lord Krishna. Mamana bhava mahabhakta, mam yaji, mam namaskuru, mam evaisya satyante, pratijano priyosime. This is the function of the mind. The mind has no other business. This is the original function of the mind. Mamana bhava mahabhakta is to engage the mind, is always thinking of Krishna, offering obeisances to Krishna. That is the Mamana bhava mahabhakta. the nature of the mind is to engage in thinking about Krishna. That is no other business for the mind. But when the mind is corrupted by long association with material modes of nature in the material body, then one becomes confused, it becomes bewildered, he engages in all kinds of activities. So Maharaj Parikshit is asking here, so how do one, if he asked twofold questions, he said, tell us in details where the mind has to be applied and how the conception of conception can be fixed so that these dirty things. So Lord Krishna said, the only place to focus the mind, Krishna answered that. And Sukadeva Goswami will continue to explain as it is mentioned in the following verses that will be following this one. The nature of the mind is to focus on the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his pure state of in his pure state. But when the mind is corrupted due to so many coverings, associations with so many material identification, is confused. And Prabhupada explains something which is synonymous to the Western philosophers. These desires, instead of giving him any peace of mind, create new problems and thus bind him to the cycle of repeated birth and death. Today, Israel is fighting. The Jews are fighting what's their other tribe?
Palestinians.
Palestinians. The Yorubas are fighting the Igbos. The Igbos are fighting the Yorubas. We just get a flash news of few minutes ago. The Niger Deltas have raised arms. Oh, in Lagos, Nigeria, due to the governorship elections, the Yorubas have attacked and killed many of our brothers. So therefore, we shall kill the Yorubas in the Niger Delta region. For crying loud, who is a Nigeria? Who is the Niger Delta? Who is a Yoruba? The soul has no identification with all of this. And that is what Prabhupada is talking about here. This desire, instead of giving him any peace of mind, it creates so many problems, so many unlimited problems. All of the problems that we see in the material world today is as a result of this misidentification only. So therefore, Lord Krishna, when he was going to address Arjuna, he told him, my dear Arjuna, although Arjuna was asking about how to win a war, whether to fight or whether not to fight, but Krishna didn't answer by telling him whether you should fight or not fight. Lord Krishna told Arjuna, he knows me yet hadehe, kaumaram yovanam jara, tata diantra praptri, rastastranam yati. This is your problem. Your problem is this misidentification. When the Shankazi in the ancient India, not too long a time ago, during the era of the appearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Shankazi, he practically stopped the Sankirtan movement. He said, this is nonsense. Stop them. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu staged a peaceful protest. And when they sat down, when they eventually sat down, the same message. So all of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness is centered around this only. Just remove the misidentification and everything will become clear. The question of where to focus the mind, how to pass will become very clear. Because the real problem is what? Misidentification, which are born out of contact with the material senses and the material body. The living entity in its original state of consciousness, Prabhupada mentioned in purpose, Satchit Ananda Vrigaha. It's eternal, knowledgeable, and it's blissful. But it loses all of it. This is characteristics simply by contact with the three modes of material nature in the material body. This is his problem. So the impersonalist, due to this poor fund of knowledge, cannot understand. And to help them, those persons who are unable to pin their faith on the personal feature of the absolute are given a chance to associate with his Virat Rupa or the cosmic impersonal feature, the Lord. So Prabhupada is explaining why Sukadev Goswami was given all of these systems of Stanga Yuga, because in the confused state of consciousness, when you ask a typical Westerner, who is God? God is omnipotent. Yes, we know. Beyond that, God is omnipresent. Beyond that, God is a spirit. Yes. Beyond that, knowledge finishes there. Only a devotee knows that Krishna is still Bhagavan, so I am. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. Only a devotee can understand and realize this. Only a devotee can relate to this kind of level of understanding. And that is where Sukadev Goswami is going to today. That is where Maharaj Parikshit is trying to direct us by his costless mercy for those who are born in this age. Just like 5,000 years ago, Arjuna acted in the mood of an ordinary conditioned soul. Maharaj Parikshit here is acting, creating a precedence for us who are going to be born in this age of Kali, so that we can have a focus, we can have a direction. So in the second paragraph of the purport given by Srila Prabhupada said, Maharaj Parikshit was already directly connected with the Supreme Personality, feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And as such, he had no need to inquire from Sukadev Goswami about where and how to apply the mind in the impersonal Virat Rupa of the Lord. But he inquired after a detailed description of the matter for the benefit of others who are unable to conceive of the transcendental personal feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Sukadev Goswami was narrating how to engage the mind, how to direct the mind, and all of that. And the Maharaj Parikshit is saying there, okay, I've understood all of that. For the purpose of my unborn generations who are going to come. So Prabhupada takes us that the non-devotee class of men cannot think of the personal feature of the Lord because of their poor fund of knowledge. The personal form of the Lord, like Krishna, Rama, is completely revolting to them. They have a poor estimation of the potency of the Lord. So for that purpose, Lord Krishna, he came into this material world and he created the human-like activities. To give the living entity. Because when Krishna says, Mama Baba Ma Bhakta, to engage the mind focus on me, they don't know where to focus the mind on. Sometimes back ago, I went to one Ekenka program. Some of you must be knowing Ekist, the chanters of Ooh. That's the mantra. And they say, what is Ooh? Ultimately, an Ekist wants to attain nothingness. So, Mamana Bhavad, how to engage that mind, what to engage the mind on. So for that purpose, Lord Krishna appeared in this material world. He enacted pastimes like ordinary person. In his Damodara Lila, he enacted so many beautiful, attractive pastimes. So Lord Prabhupada quoted, paraphrased chapter 9, verse 11. Jamma kama cha me diviam ivam yo veti tatwa dia prona. No, that's what Prabhupada is quoting. Prabhupada quoted 9, I think 9:11 he quoted. Yes, Prabhupada quoted 9:11. Avajananti ma muda. Avajananti ma muda. Manush tanu asritam param bhavam ajananto mamam bhuta maheshwaram. That those who are fools, they deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. So to give direction on where to focus the mind, Lord Krishna, he appeared in this material world. He descended into this material world. He enacted so many material, so-called activities in material nature, just to give a direction of his personal feature, the personal two-handed form of Sri Krishna. And he does this millennium after millennium. He appeared as Ram, Krishna, Narasimha, Chaitanya, Sri Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and many other incarnations. He continuously appeared. All this is just to give direction to when Krishna says, meditate upon Mamana Bhava Bhakta, we have to engage the mind on. In answer to Krishna that Mara Parishit asking here. But those who are foolish, still they cannot understand that personal feature. They cannot comprehend it. So they consider him to be like one of them. He's just an ordinary human being, or maybe a little bit supernatural. He just has some potency. Maybe he's a yogi in his previous life. They cannot understand. But the devotees of the Lord are so fortunate that Krishna makes himself available. So that's why Lord Krishna told Arjuna, Machita Magata Pranam, Diyastas Parasparam. Kantayascha Manitya, Tuchianticha, Ramanticha. This is the life of a devotee. Because they don't understand the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So they're always engaging their mind, they're always engaging their consciousness, they're only engaging in talking about him in their association of such like-minded persons. And by such like-minded activities, when they quit this material world, they go back to God. Because the ultimate end of one who has taken body in this material body is death. As sure as death, they say. For one who has taken birth, death is certain. So for one who is intelligent, who has taken birth, he knows he's going to die. So he prepares. Just like a student who enrolled in the school, whether he likes it or not, whether it's intended or not, whether he likes it or not, there must be an examination. So that's such an examination is to promote the student and to go into the next class. In the same way, death for one who is a devotee of the Lord is to go back to the Supreme Personality of God. And for such a devotees of the Lord, there is no difficulty, because he focuses only on the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And at the end, he goes back to Godhead. So earlier today, I was watching the last lecture given by Srila Gurudev. And he was explaining how the previous acharyas, by their life and activities, they live such a life to give us the focus, where to direct our focus. And he mentioned just like in the mood of, just like Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And he mentioned, just like other of his senior god brothers, Gopal Krishna, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and many others that have left before him. They left a legacy of how a devotee should prepare to quit this material world. So he said, Krishna is giving an opportunity also to teach that to his disciple. And Gurudev, in his usual mode, he makes it so enlivening. Or there's something so heavy as such of termination of the material body, makes it so lively by explaining that what can be more wonderful than one had an opportunity to prepare for its own funeral, to choose his own samadhi, to choose his own where his ashes is going to be put on. And that is the opportunity we all have here. That as a devotee, death comes as a surprise to everyone. But for a devotee, there's never anything such like that. Because we constantly hear. So rather than become a threat or a fearful mode, the sound of death becomes an opportunity, an embracing thing for those who are pure devotees of the Lord, or even for those who are in the practicing stage of devotion and service. So therefore, Maharaj Parikshit here is giving us a legacy. So Prabhupada explained that, so for the benefit of men who are unable to accept the Lord in his personal eternal form, Maharaj Parikshit inquired from Sukadev Goswami how to fix the mind on him in the beginning, and the Goswami replied in details, as we will see in the next verse and on. Hare Krishna. So I would like to stop here so that we can have more time for interactive discussions, question and answers, corrections, and then realizations on the subject matter of today's discussion. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity to share something in relations to Maharaj Parikshit's mercy on the condition soul, in the matter of preparation of the soul for the soul's departure in this material world. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. It's Grace Salika Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, as always. Dear devotees, I'm sure you realizing that the original scheduled speaker is not the one speaking. Mother Kunti shared with all of us that this material world is a very dangerous place. At every step, there is danger. So our originally scheduled speaker could not be here because he communicated with some of us that he was not feeling very well. So we wrote back to him, wishing him a speedy recovery from whatever ailment he's having. And then, as usual, Sarika Prabhu just stepped in to speak. So we thank him for doing that. And Harikrisna Prabhu, please, you may unmute and then speak. If you have something to share or ask, please go ahead.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Salika Prabhu, for always jumping in. You are always ready. You are always ready to deliver. That is the spirit of a devotee. Thank you. My question is, whilst you were deliberating, you said something that Maharaj Parikshit was already a pure devotee before he even decided to sit down and listen to Sukadev Goswami. So if that is the case, then why is it that anytime we are talking about the 9 processes of bhakti and we are giving examples, sometimes we say Maharaj Parikshit became pure just by listening. If the person was already pure, so why do we keep quoting that he became pure just by listening? He was already pure. So I want you to give some.
Thank you very much for that beautiful question. That's a very beautiful one. So if Maharaj Parikshit was pure, already pure devotee, so what is the need? Why does he have to?
No, that is not my question. My question is,
if he's already pure, I understand your question, Prabhu.
Okay.
I'm taking it from the point where you get to, it was already pure. So when we are talking about 9 processes of devotional service, then why do we refer to them as one who was impure and became pure by the process? That was a question, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the question.
Yeah, that was my question.
Yeah, I understand your question perfectly. So I'm taking it back to from where it started so that I can get to your question. So the nature of the pure devotees or the nature of the Lord is that the Lord is always compassionate to his conditions, living entities in the material world. And that was where I ended up the discussion, that the Lord has no business to come into this material world. But for the purpose of giving opportunity to these who are conditioned, so just like a teacher takes the pencil and takes the hand of the student and start writing ABCD. The teacher is not writing how to do that, but to show the student how to do it. So he accepted to the process of writing ABCD. So for those who are pure devotees of the Lord, who accompany the Lord in his pastimes on his lila, by the influence of the Yoga Maya, they are put in a condition. The Lord enacted those pastimes for the purpose of attracting the mind of those who are in that state of mind. Because just like the student example, the ability for the student, just like even the conditioned soul, the student does not need to learn anything, because the so-called student is a spirit soul who's engaged in the material body of a small baby. So it's learning how to write. Or just like a child is learning how to walk, the walking ability is not something that is imported from outside for the living entity. It is something that is already within it, but it comes externally to learn it. So in the same way, the living entity is originally pure, but we have forgotten our purity as a result of association with conditional life or material body. So to remind us how to do that, just like the teacher puts himself in the position of writing ABC, the pure devotees comes in that situation. Now, the question now, the summary of the question is that if they were already pure, why do we now refer to them as example? The reason why we refer to them as example is that although they are pure, they put themselves in a particular situation, just like a movie actor is not a madman, but in the film, just to pass on a particular message, act as a mad person. In the same way, this pure devotee, although they are not, they assume They come into that under the influence of the material modes of material nature. They are acting like a madman. They're acting like a conditioned person. They actually assume that position to enact. So someone asked, so was Maharaj Parikshit actually in that state of mind when he was doing this? Yes, he was fully in that mood. Was Arjuna bewildered? Yes, Arjuna was completely bewildered. Although Arjuna is a pure devotee, but for the purpose of enacting that pastime, the Lord by his potency put him in that situation. Does Krishna forget himself that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead when Sita was taken away and he was struggling? Wouldn't Krishna be capable enough to just, by his supreme will, just drag Sita back? But the Lord himself assumed that situation by the influence of his own supreme potencies. Yoga Maya comes into that mood. He assumed that mood for the purpose of teaching a particular lesson. So those pure devotees, Maharaj Parikshit, Arjuna, and all of the devotees who are in that mood, it is not like they are faking it. They were put in that particular situation, even though originally they are not conditioned, but they are put in that conditioned state for the purpose of teaching, for the purpose of showing example. So when we refer to them as an example, it is not fictitious, it is not speculative, it is a reality because they were put in that conditioned state. But by the narrative of the Lord, they are able to exhibit that pastimes according to the script that is already written by the Supreme Lord, being carried out by the influence of the Yoga Maya. So yes, we refer to them because they were in that situation. They were not outside of that situation. They were actually in that mood because they were put in that mood for that purpose. I don't know whether that helps.
Well, thank you so much for the answer. Prabhu, I hope you're okay with the answer. I had
that helps. But
okay.
The follow-up question is, okay, if that is the situation, that the Lord intentionally put them in that situation, so it means that as at the time that they were in that situation, they didn't even realize themselves as being pure devotees, but they were bewildered, like you were explaining, like the confusion of Arjuna and Maharaj Parikshit's bewilderment of what do I have to do before to be able to go back to God. What should a person who is about to die do? Even though they knew the answer, but the Lord has put them in such conditions. Okay, if that is the case, how do we then know that, like those of us that we are sitting here, like you, somebody like Salika, how do we know that if the Lord had not intentionally put you in this situation, so that we can learn and learn from you? How do we know?
Thank you. Very beautiful question. So how then do we know that Salika is not Ramananda Rai or Swarup Damodara? That's a beautiful question. How we get to know is that when the pure devotees who are associates of the Lord are put in that situation, they are never able to forget
Krishna.
In the field of acting, when an actor takes a particular role, momentarily is acting like a witch or a killer. He doesn't forget that he is not a killer or a witch. At the back of his mind, he remembers. But for us, we are completely forgetful because we are not coming from that particular position. Our position is that of a condition who is grossly covered. And because we have no connection to that place, we completely forget. Just like the story of King Barak taking the body of a deer. Although he has fallen into that degraded body of a deer, but he never forgets who he was. So the pure devotees, although they are put in that temporary situation, but they have not disconnected themselves. They are not disconnected from the spirit, their spiritual position. They are always connected. And that is why, even though when they seemingly are suffering, they never feel the pain because they are not disconnected. But for us, we have become disconnected. Because of our disconnection, we can experience it. We're bewildered, and we're never in any way connected to to that level of realization. So we feel the pain. So then I think, Sahadev is my enemy. He is actually against me. But for the pure devotees, then immediately Sahadev slaps me. He thinks, oh, Krishna is making this happen so that I can learn certain lessons. He remembers Krishna's always. So devotee, Satam, Krita, Yantuma, devotees of the Lord, because of they are constantly always connected to the Lord, they never forget the Lord at any time. Although they are temporarily put in a state of consciousness where they act like ordinary person, but they never forget who they are. They are not disconnected from the Supreme. So we can see that in our own experience that we're not Swarup Damodar, we're not the gopis, because our experience does not connect us to that level of consciousness.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Say, Dasa will come to you. So that every time you answer a question, I get more questions to ask.
Very good. Very good.
There is this guy from Nigeria. I like him so much. He's a comedian. Something the drunk.
Clint
the drunk. Clint the drunk. Thank you. he has one show, and he was referring to one Nigerian actor, and he was saying, look at his eyes. He has big eyeballs,
Check my reason.
Yes. He says every movie he acts like a villain, like he's a diva. He says, I tell you, even though he's acting, sometimes it appears in reality, So there was a time that this guy was being attacked by a witch, and when the witch bit him, the witch shouted, in the blood of Jesus. So, my question is, taking the role of being an actor to serve the Supreme Lord, can one become a victim? Can the actor become a victim at some point? Or Krishna makes sure that the actor never at any point becomes a victim? Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you very much. As you're sharing these pastimes of Clint, it made me remember while I was in the primary school. When we were in the primary school, we were acting drama. I think that was in probably 5 or 6 or so. We were acting drama. And in the role of the drama, I was supposed to act as a horse for one of my schoolmate who is going to act like the actor, the hero of the film. So he was supposed to climb my back and ride like a horse. And when you are riding a horse, you have to beat the horse to move faster. So he climbed and we were acting. I know we are acting. But this guy, maybe he had me in his mind before or whatever, I don't know. So when he got to some stage in the acting, we were on the stage. So this guy hit me very, very badly that I couldn't bear the pain. So I just stood up.
Oh, Krishna.
I stood up. I forgot that we were acting drama. I burst him in his face. That is why the pure devotees of the Lord, when they're acting, Krishna never makes them feel the pain. Although they're experiencing the pain physically, but Krishna gives them some succor in such a way that and that succor is that it makes them to remember who they are. And because they are remembering their original position, they never misbehave. Just like in the case of this, my friend, if he has remembered that this is acting and he didn't forget that, but because he has animosity, he wanted to deal with me. So it was an opportunity for me. He hit me so badly. So the pure devotees who take the role of an actor, even though they are going the pain, physical pain, we can see it happening. Like Jesus Christ being nailed to the cross. He can feel it. But because he never forgets, they never forget, so their pain is relieved. In our conditioned state also, we experience that we see that material nature is so difficult. Sometimes we go through certain experiences in our devotional practice, so much so that sometimes, I mean, I remember there was one day, I don't know what happened. Something was just so bad that I could not even get a sachet of Dano milk. As at that time, this is a long time backstory. This was sold for 10 naira, Nigerian money. And we didn't add milk, but I had nothing in the temple with me, no anything. I couldn't buy that. So I had to wake the deities the following morning. There was no milk. And it's an essential ingredient. So many questions were coming to my mind. I said, I'm trying to serve you, Krishna. So I went to the altar. I was challenging him. I said, this is not for, I don't want to drink the milk. I want to use this for you. So why is it that this becomes so difficult like this? But then, as I was saying that, nobody was weeping. It just was me and the deities. Then that mindset came, and I started saying, I said, well, but it is me that chanted this morning. My dear Lord Krishna, whether you embrace me by your embrace, or you make me broken-hearted by not being present before me, you're always my worshipful Lord. So maybe this is another test, Krishna. Immediately, because I have knowledge of Krishna, I was able to reconcile. But one who is not connected to Krishna will not remember that. You would think that this God is not worth serving. And that is why you see that sometimes people come to devotional service, they're practicing devotional service so vigorously. But when some material challenges come, they leave. But you and I have gone through so many challenges in this moment, but we are still here. Why? Because we are releasing some taste. And what is that taste? The taste of connection to Krishna. It may not be that in the professional stage, but because we're in some way connected to him, we cannot leave, even when we see situations that make us to leave. I'll end the answer by narrating one other story. In the early days of my devotional life, I was a big prophet in a church. So my mom was used to me being glorified and all of that, and then, all of that kind of things. So she didn't want me to be a devotee. So she came to the temple. I was a pujari. I think that time when Jayala Jata. And he came and he said, if you don't come out and follow me back home, the whole of this street will know what you people are cooking inside this house. That thing that you put on your altar, you know, Jagannath has a very attractive fish. He said, I have it in my village. If it is this idol you want to worship, come, let me take you to the village. We have it in the village. I'll go and take you there. But for you to stay there, it will not happen. I said, okay, Mom, just give me a few minutes. So I went into the room. I told somebody to take over from me. I went home with that. And in the night when she was sleeping, I sneaked out. I came back to the temple. Then the following morning, she woke up. She didn't see me. And incidentally, that day, the following day, we were going to go on Arinam at Oshodi. And when she's coming to the temple, she'll have to pass through Oshodi and come. So we spread books. Normal Arinam setting. We put the books on the floor and then we're dancing Kirtan. Initially, she didn't see me. That was among the people there. Said, this is the same Hare Krishna people that has taken my son. So she came, she carried the book and used her leg, scattered the book. So the devotee was going to react. So I said, look. So I called Chateau, one of my godbrothers. That is my mom. Leave her. She's angry. It's because of me. So I hide. What am I telling these stories? Is that despite the fact that so much passionate push to get me out of the system, I was barely a bachelor. This time I'm talking about. But I couldn't go because something was giving me the reason why I should not leave. So many engagements like this. So the devotees of the Lord, because they are never disconnected to Krishna, with Krishna, even when those situations comes, they don't feel the pain. Rather, they laugh at the situation and we wonder, isn't he feeling pain? And sometimes we even get confused. We even get confused. We see the body of a pure devotee collapsing and we think maybe he is not feeling pain. He is feeling the pain, but he's not relating to the pain the way we relate to the pain because he knows what is behind. Just like when my mom came, she was physically going to destruct the arena. And in that such a situation, if I never knew, you know how ordinarily one would react to such a situation. But my reaction was different because I could understand. So the pure devotees of the Lord, they understand. They're connected to Krishna because they have a connection to Krishna. So even though the physical destruction or inconveniences are there, they don't react to it like we will react in our conditioned state of mind.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for the answer. Well, at least we know Krishna is not as mean as your friend who was sitting on your back. There is another drama where one guy was acting as Jesus Christ. It was Easter celebration where Christ was crucified. And this guy was acting the role of Christ. And so this guy was being whipped. But he was whipped so hard and said, hey, what are you doing? Don't you remember this is just a drama? I said, come on. Don't you remember you are Christ? So thank you so much. But Hassan, please you be on mute.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble respect obeisances.
Yeah.
Thank you for a wonderful class. Actually, I wanted to ask a question, but when Sarika Prabhu was narrating the stories, then I'm beginning to get the answers in my head. So that's why I put my hand down.
Yeah, okay.
Because the story of Prabhupada came to my mind because I remember during his days in India when he was trying to publish the book and trying to preach about the Krishna consciousness, he was sitting by a bull and he was there, nobody was there to help him, but he didn't give up, you know. He became a stranger in India which is his hometown, and still old man, he didn't give up. So when I tell the story, all this beginning to come to my mind. And I remember when he went to US, and he get a lot of challenges, you know. Comes a day which one boy who was living with him, David, who was trying to attack him. He go through a lot of difficulties, but he didn't give up. So this came to my mind. So I get my answers. So thank you so much. Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
very much, Dr. Azan.
Yeah.
And as you are also sharing that proper experience, and I was wondering, Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, although he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although he has so many followers, but he was not respected. So therefore, he has to take the gap of the sannyasi. Why would the Supreme Personality of Godhead do that?
Yeah.
He doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to take sannyasi. He doesn't need it. He's the Supreme Personality of God. He could make all of the living hear him, and they follow whatever instruction is given. He can even, without even saying a word, make it happen. So the Lord, he enacted those pastimes to make us understand that in our situation, this is what we are, because we're tied, both 2 arms, 2 legs down. So this is the situation we are. So he puts himself in that situation, and he shows us how to come out of that situation. So many pastimes like that we can relate to. Lord Krishna, does he have to go to the school of the Gurukulis? He doesn't have to go to the Gurukulis to go and learn how to learn grammar and Vedic studies. He doesn't need it. But he enacted that. But he's still the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When it was the time for graduation, he exhibited that quality that he is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has not forgotten that he's Krishna. And he went to bring the dead sons of his spiritual master back to life. He exhibited that supreme power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead here. But while as a student, he enacted that pastime very perfectly, just like a student. So this is the mercy of, this is the Lord's mercy. This is the mercy of the pure devotees. They take these positions, not forgetting that they are pure devotees, but they acted really in that position just to make it real, make real, like they say, for our own benefit.
Yes. I remember one story which my teacher told at the class. I don't know if I can share it here.
Go ahead.
Yes, people are talking about their problems and so on, and he was saying something about Srila Prabhupada, that maybe we think that he was not having any problems, but he was having a problem, but he overcome the problems because when he was planning to go to US, he set his family down because he don't want to leave his children. So he sit down with the sister and the other family, and he told them his plans, and he was worried that who is going to take care of his children. And her sister promised him that he's going to take care of them. So when Prabhupada returned from US, he saw one of his sons who was in a very, very bad condition. You know, he was, to extend that he was picking food from garbage and so on, and he was so disturbed. Anyway, when he read that part, he didn't go further, but he was trying to make us understand that even Prabhupada, he was having problems, but he did not allow all these problems to overcome what he has to do. So if at the age he has, very old man, he has to travel to US with no money, but he have this thing in him that he has to complete the mission of spiritual master. And because of he is determined and he wants to do what he has instructed, then he'll be able to do it upon all the problems he was having. So this was a story to encourage us that no matter what the situation we have, we don't have to stay away from Krishna. So I want to share this this story, which though he didn't say much to the further, but he wanted us to know that Prabhupada was also having a problems, like family problems. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, that's a nice one. And I'll share a story to buttress what you're saying. Real life experience. When I joined devotional service, when I came into Grihastha life, my first child, my daughter, when she was about 2 years old, she fell unconscious. She had cerebral malaria and she was in coma for several days. And one morning, there was so much of death in the hospital ward. But my mom refused to go, to come. My wife was carrying my second child, so she couldn't come to stay with the child. But that morning, something happened so much that I could see that maybe probably that girl was going to go. So I went to the temple and started praying. Because my mom was already saying, now, okay, I told him not to join the Hare Krishna. They're going to, he is going to sacrifice his first child. That's what they do. There was nothing true to this. They were going to sacrifice his first child because that is what they vowed. I don't know where they got that story from. So I went to
everywhere.
I came before Jagannath and I said, Krishna, I said, well, I don't know. You gave this child and you're free to take her whatever time you like. I said, but if this happens, your name will be blasphemed. I may not have the impurity, I may not have that level of purity to be able to tell you what you should do. But I said, but if this child dies now, your name will be so tarnished because it was already assumed, it's already going on that this child is dying, even though a child dies every day, everywhere, nobody complains. But this particular child, her death is being predicted based on the fact that your name should be slighted. So I said, for the sake of your name, if this child even is supposed to die, please kindly save her for that situation. As I was emotionally praying, I prayed for several hours. And at about 11 in the morning that day, I think I've shared story with someone of my godbrothers. I felt me. When I looked around, there was nobody in the temple. I didn't know whether I was sleeping, whether I was anything. I can't explain it. But I felt that some touch of as if somebody touched me on my shoulder. And I came back to external consciousness, and then I was looking around. I was right in front of Jagannath. And I looked at my time, it was 11 o'clock. I didn't know how long I stayed there. I left the hospital around 6 a.m. in the morning. And I came to I came to the temple room, and that time it was exactly 11 o'clock in the morning. So I decided to go back to the hospital. And by the time I got there, they moved my baby away from the ward she was. The ward was deserted because actually there was almost 11 or so children died that morning before I left the place. So I already thought also she was going to die also. So when I got there, I didn't see anybody. I said, oh, she's dead. So they packed her up. Then I started making inquiries. So somebody said, oh, they moved the remaining 3 children that was remaining in this ward. But I think there were 19 children in that ward. All of them died that morning. Only 3 of them remaining. So they said, oh, they moved the remaining 3 to the female ward because the whole of the ward was deserted. It was like Yamarad came in there to do some serious business that morning. So I, with faith, I went up just to go and check because I already assumed that she's gone. And when I got there, the moment I arrived, the matron recognizes me and he shouted, oh, miracle baby father, miracle baby father. And I was wondering what she's talking about. He said, your baby It's a miracle baby. That at a point in time, we had to take all the remaining 3 because it has never happened in this hospital that in just within an hour, almost more than 10 children died, just like that. So when the medical director came in the morning, he said we should take the remaining 3 away from that place for whatever reason. You know, Nigerians, we are very superstitious also, even though we do the medical thing. So the doctors, the senior doctor said they should take the remaining 3 children away from there. So they took them to the female ward. He said, so the doctor said we should bring them here. But your baby, my baby was already about 6 or 7 days in coma for that time. And he said she came back by 11 o'clock. And when she came back, the remaining 2 other children also came back from, you know, cerebral Maria knocks you off. So the remaining 2 children also came back to life. So your baby is actually a miracle baby. So we name her Miracle Baby. And I recall it. That was at that time I felt untouched. But why am I narrating this story? That even in our conditioned state, because we've heard the stories of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, at a point in time, he prayed, my dear Lord, give me some more time so that I can finish the work that you have given me to do. But devotional service, whether in the beginning, in the middle, or in the higher stage of devotional service, there is potency. I was just barely, I don't know, I think I just took in his first initiation that time. I barely know nothing about devotion. So I cannot say I've realized anything. But Krishna listened to me, to the voice of my prayers, because I was intently praying from my heart. And Krishna, for the sake of your name, let this happen. And Krishna makes it happen. So this is the power of devotional service. And the pure devotees, they come to show us. And my inspiration for that prayer was coming from the prayers of Srila Prabhupada, because if Prabhupada prayed that Krishna, for so and so, for you, for the purpose of finishing your business, give me some more time. And I took inspiration from there. I prayed, and this happened. So the pure devotees of God, they came, they enacted those pastimes, they put themselves in that situation, and they acted in such a way to show us how we also should act when we're in such a difficult situation. And when we follow in those footsteps, we get some powerful realization and advancement in our development of bhakti or devotional life.
Thank you so much, Sarika Prabhu. But I just learned something last night, and you just touched on it, that why would Krishna have to go to school to learn alphabets and numerals and how to count and things? You think about it, that's why it's very difficult for people to accept Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead, because he acted just like an ordinary human being acts, but yet he's the same Supreme Lord. So I didn't know this until last night, that Krishna was actually challenged by some of his friends that, look at you, you went and brought back all the sons of your guru who had disappeared, Sandipani Muni. Yet you cannot bring your own siblings. Your mother, Devaki, she lost 7 children before you. Now you can't bring them back. Krishna said, oh, really? Okay. So Krishna actually brought them all back. And from what I heard, the story goes that when they were all brought back, they all drank the breast milk of Mother Devaki. And because Krishna had drank the breast milk of Mother Devaki, and they also drank it, that is a Mahaprashadam. They all attended liberation and went back home. So this is the Krishna we worship. It's just a sweet Krishna. Hare Krishna Bhakta-san, please unmute.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Please, my question is, many years ago, we those who were in different faiths, and those days when we see the devotees, or if you say anything about Christian consciousness, you think that it's idol worshippers, or they are demonic, or they have some other things, you know. So you used to say a lot of bad we used to say a lot of bad things about them. And I learned that if you say something bad about the devotees, it's very, very dangerous. You are going to be punished for that. So during that time, we didn't know. So coming to Krishna consciousness and coming to realize that all those were wrong. Am I still going to punish for these karmas?
Very beautiful question. Thank you. Yeah. You're going to be punished. But your punishment is that you become a devotee. And that is what you are experiencing now.
Okay.
When one engages in activities, Mother Putana did not come to embrace and congratulate Mother Yasoda. She came with intention to kill Krishna. But she got the same liberation as that of Mother Yasoda. So for Krishna, because Krishna is supreme, there is no enmity towards Krishna. Whether it is intentionally or unintentionally against the will of Krishna. The moment one has opportunity to come in contact with Krishna, it becomes automatically purified, because Krishna is Papa Vidam. He is not affected by any sinful activities. He is active, he is transcendental, and by that nature, one who comes in contact with him is also purified. That is why we worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But above that, the promise of Krishna is Sarva Dhamma Parityajam Mamikam Saranam Raja. Aham Chom Sarva Pabhibhyo Mokshami Syami Masucha. Just surrender unto me. You have sinned, you have committed so many sinful activities, but forget them, don't worry. I shall protect you from all of them. Masucha, do not fear. I've told the story here sometimes of some Christians in our neighboring our neighbors in our Kaduna temple some years back. Because of enmity towards our movement, once they start the worship and praise in the morning, Krishna power, lower power, Krishna power, lower power, Jesus power, higher power. And every day they kept on chanting Krishna. And gradually as they do that, you start seeing that one by one, some of them are getting attracted to the temple.
Yeah.
So Krishna power, lower power.
Their overseer came at one point in time, and the other, we stopped there, stop. I think he must have read our books. I'm sure, maybe probably he has read our books somewhere, and he has heard about the potency of the holy name. So he said, stop this. Don't say that name again. They said, what name? He said, don't say, I said, don't say that name again. I said, which name, sir? He doesn't want to say the name Krishna. So they kept on asking, which name we are saying? We are saying, stop, don't say that name again. So eventually himself has to say Krishna. So don't say that name Krishna again. As you are chanting the name Krishna, you become a Krishna person. So don't say it again. So it is like that. So Krishna is so powerful. So,
Yeah.
So those activities we engage in, but when we realize that it is wrong doing, we should not do them consciously, then we'll be committing against aparad, against the holy name. That's number 7th offense, that we should not commit those sinful activities thinking that we chant the holy name and they will nullify them. But for those activities we have engaged in, ignorantly, innocently, Krishna promises, I will protect you from all these sinful reactions. Masucha, do not fear.
Okay, because these things used to come to my mind because, you know, before we used to criticize other religions and so on and say a whole lot of things about them, and coming to Krishna consciousness, in my case, most of the time, I thank Krishna so much for putting me in that condition. Because I tell myself, if I did not go through all these difficulties, how on earth is it possible for me to come to Krishna consciousness? Because it was something, if somebody told me, I would say, oh, this is not possible, you know. So I thank Krishna for putting me in this situation. Because if not, I will never, it's not possible. It's no. But Krishna in his own way do this miracle. So Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. So, well, it's about time. Devotees, if anyone has something to share, otherwise we'll bring this to a close. Srimad Prabhu, is Prabhu here?
Yes, it's here.
Yeah, Prabhu, Srimad Prabhu, you have something to share, please?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yeah, nothing much. Just thank Salika Prabhu for this wonderful class. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Shri Govinda, you have something to share?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Sri Govind. One day you drive all of us to Goloka Vrindavan. Maharaja,
Yes.
My obeisances to you, Prabhus. All glory to Gurudev. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
This is pure nectar. Thank you for feeding us this morning, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Just one point.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I just remembered now. Yeah, the question Arishaka Prabhu asked.
That's it?
Are you hearing?
Yes.
The question Arishaka Prabhu asked about
Marriage correction.
yeah. And why do you say that the ideal devotees, but then when we are mentioning giving examples of those who attain perfection, we use Mara Parishita as an example. Not only him, Shukadev Goswami also.
Arjuna.
He attained perfection by speaking and then through friendship. Yeah, of course, Salika Prabhu had given some explanation, but just some things, some contribution to make to that. One is that yes, they're already pure devotees. A good example is Shukadev Goswami. Shukadev Goswami, self-realized soul, is a pure devotee, no question about it. But then he attained perfection of devotional service through chanting, through reciting the Bhagavatam. So there's a difference in the two. Because Shukadev Goswami was a pure soul, liberated soul. But his perfection only came when he engaged in devotional service through chanting. Arjuna was a pure devotee, a friend of Krishna, but that his perfection came when he realized that he has been taking that role for granted. And now he's now surrendered to Krishna. Now you can instruct me. So every one of them had been pure devotee in some regard, but not until they dovetailed that into the service of Krishna. before it became a perfection for them. So I hope we understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So this is the glory of devotional service. When we dovetail the same activity we've been doing, when we dovetail it to Krishna, then it becomes perfection. Same activity, same activity. Yeah. So that is the difference. So there's a lot. Even many examples can be quoted. One is that Bhagavatam verse, second canto, chapter 3, I think verse 10. Akama Sama. What is it? That verse. Exactly. So that verse also explains it. So those who are even liberated souls, they also get purified by engaging in devotional service. So that verse also explains that. And I think there's also one more example in that regard, which is crossing my mind and going away. So, so Krishna again said in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 3. Manisharam Sahasri Krishna Yapati Siddhaya. After many persons, adding on. And out of those who know him, hardly anyone. And out of those who have attained perfection, hardly anyone knows the truth. Right. So there are different grades, in perfection, in different grades. So those who know Krishna already, not until they engage themselves in devotional service, before that relationship becomes perfected. So Krishna, gives us this opportunity to progress through bhakti, through devotional service. I already started writing something on the different grades of bhakti on the platform. I will have opportunity to explain this later on. So many different levels are there in bhakti. Okay.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Different upgrades. Yeah. So at this point, devotees, we're going to humbly request you all to kindly unmute, and we all chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation to our revered speaker and all the Vaishnava devotees assembled here. Jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha, kripasinubhyascha, Pitana
Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda Ki Jai.
Ki Jai.
Jai Gora Pinda.
Prabhu Ki Jai.
Yeah.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.